بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا، وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. أسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجه الكريم. I start with the name of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. I ask Allah to raise the rank and the status of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment. I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us the sincere and noble intentions, because it is through Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala that all the difficult things become easy. And among the difficult things is trying to remain on the straight path to Al-Jannah. As it was mentioned by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that the paradise was surrounded by difficulty, things that are challenging for us. That's the route to Al-Jannah. Overcoming our desires and our passions and adhering to the rules of the sacred law. So I want to welcome all of you to an edition of Post-Fajr Reflections. If some of you who've been around a long time, we used to have every morning Post-Fajr Reflections. It was like our main program that we would have every morning, where I would talk about various issues and topics from the standpoint of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah in terms of knowledge and practice and spirituality. And inshallah ta'ala, I want to begin having those sessions again, because there are many, many important issues that we need to cover that sometimes we just don't have the time to cover them adequately. So we need to have a space where it's just important issues that we need and clarifications about matters that are of concern in our communities and in our lives on a daily basis. So inshallah ta'ala, I want to go back to that quickly. How many of you remember the Post-Fajr Reflections summer barbecue? Do y'all remember? We had several of those. How many of you remember the Post-Fajr Reflection barbecue family reunion in Atlantic City? How many of you attended those? It would be in July sometime, usually, either the first or second week in July, across the street from the masjid. and we would have the women versus the men uh, in knowledge competitions. And if you remember how the men used to just demolish the women, let me get all the answers. No, y'all didn't. We beat most of them. So we used to have these competitions uh, with the men versus the women, and all of the knowledge that we would learn during the mornings. So that the question was that we used to have these. It's called the post Fajr Reflections Family Reunion, and we would have a big barbecue across the street from the masjid. We would take up a whole space. We have rides for the kids, a big tent, stage, uh, and events, and we would have like one of the main things of that was a competition between um, a competition between the men and the women in the knowledge. It was very beneficial. People would come from all over the country, east, west, north, south. So inshallah, we're going to build that back up. And it all started with this post Fajr Reflections morning talks. So inshallah. And that would be the fuel for all of the questions and things we talked about. But today, I want to take a little moment or some time to reflect on last night's Black Imams Roundtable. How many of you watched the Black Imams Roundtable yesterday with Sheikh Nasser Abdul Salam and Imam Naeem Abdullah and myself? How many of you saw the Black Imams Roundtable, which was titled "Sacred Knowledge in Our Communities"? How many of you watched the Black Imams Roundtable last night? It was a very good one. I really enjoyed it. Uh, that Black Imams Roundtable was uh, important in that, especially in our communities, the aspect of really, really acquiring the sacred knowledge needs a lot of improvement. And when I say the sacred knowledge, it is al-ilm al-shar'i. And what I mean by that is the religious knowledge that we must know individually and collectively. So I'm talking about comprehensiveness, and we're talking about sacred knowledge. We're not talking just about one aspect. For instance, you will hear all the time, far'ain. Yes, everyone who is mukallaf, morally responsible, that person must learn a certain portion of the sacred knowledge. That's for the individual, right? As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Talibul ilmi faridatun ala kulli Muslim." That seeking a certain portion of the knowledge, so seeking the knowledge, what is intended by that? A certain portion of the knowledge is an obligation on every Muslim. And why I translated it like that is because when the Prophet ﷺ said, فَرِيدَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ Muslim. It is an obligation on every Muslim. It is known from that is something specific, because if knowledge in general was intended, that would be an obligation that could not be fulfilled. That's how the scholars explained it. So what is understood is that personal obligatory knowledge that every morally responsible individual, every mukallaf, must know. So we're not just talking about that, though that is the most important type of knowledge when we're talking about individuals. But we're not just individuals, we're a collective community. So therefore, there is other knowledge that some of us need to know, while others follow those who learn that in those rulings that relate to that type of knowledge. So when we're speaking about sacred knowledge, as a community, we're speaking about the entire spectrum of the various sciences of Islam. And this is important because in our communities, if we're going to be a major benefit and assistance to the ummah as a whole, we need to master our portion. And there's a video that, if I can find it, I would like all of you to watch in the future. I'll get it and I'll put it up later. Give me a second. Oh Lord, give me 1 second. I gotta think. My brain is moving slow this morning. Okay. So I'm going to share this video with you later for you to watch. But in our communities, there's been many obstacles that prevent us from, as a collective, really taking our place on the world Islamic stage. And that's by design. And some of us got to have the job of waking each other up. You know, we are collectively sleeping and we don't even realize we're sleeping. And it's important that through knowledge, we begin to wake up. And when you wake up, you'll start to see why we're in the position we're in, right? And then start to do things to change that. Among them, the very first thing that we must do is learn our religion properly. And there is a proper way to learn that has been established for centuries among the Islamic scholars and the majority of the Muslim nation. And this is extremely important, that as we seek knowledge, we know what knowledge we need to seek, how we need to seek it, and the amount of it that is needed for every given circumstance, right? And what does that really look like? It's extremely important. And to be able to identify the people of knowledge from the people who don't have knowledge, and the various levels in between the two. Please take this very important, because we live in a time where all the matters are confused. So Allah mentioned in the Quran, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Say, are those who know equal to those who do not know? Right? That means you have a class of people who are people of knowledge, scholars, learned people. And then you have another group that are not like that. But between one end and the other end, there are many levels in between. And sometimes we never discuss that, right? So you are here in our communities, and it came from a specific group, students of knowledge. So you hear this a lot, especially in the Black community. How many of you have ever heard this term used, like thrown around a lot, the students of knowledge? It's like a well-known term in certain circles in our community with no definition whatsoever. I was watching on the YouTube, I think it was yesterday. One guy was talking about entrance-free car loans. So he made a deal with a car dealer, I'm assuming that's the way it sounds. And he said, I sent the contract to a student of knowledge. He reviewed it, then sent it back. Then I sent it to another place in Saudi Arabia to another student of knowledge, and he reviewed it. And now it's 100% halal contract for getting a car and leasing or whatever. Whether that's true or not, that wasn't my point. My point was to make the business thing such, attractive. He put the students of knowledge reviewed it. It's like very vague. What is a student of knowledge? And what is the difference between a student of knowledge and a scholar? I need y'all to follow me in this, because it's important in us understanding knowledge. So when they say a student of knowledge, you have to define what makes that person a student of knowledge, and what did they actually study to know their competence in a given knowledge. Because student of knowledge is a general term, right? And the assumption is that that person actually has knowledge. That's the assumption. Just because he's the student of knowledge. Knowledge is broad. What knowledge? Right? Do you understand when someone says a student of knowledge? What knowledge? Right? Because in in the sacred law or in sacred knowledge, al-ilm al-shar'i, there's many ulum, there's many sciences, many fields of knowledge. Which one are you a student of? Do y'all get that question? And that's important. And then as a student of knowledge, what level are you? Because that's the assumption you're going towards scholarship. So what level of student knowledge are you? And this question is never answered. Most of the time, it's never asked. It's just a given. It's a student of knowledge, and he knows. He knows what? So in our communities, that means a person can be given status without being competent because we never asked or never, and they don't have to be in a way of being antagonistic. You never ask, what are you a student of knowledge in? What did you learn? And what, being a student of knowledge, what does that make you qualified to do? You know something we learn from our teachers, especially in hadith, most of the time, right? And sometimes the teacher would authorize you, would give you ijazah, right? Give you authorization to relate from their route. Now that has levels to it in itself, but let's just take the general authorization. It's not specific, it's just general. You relate from my route, right? But most of the time that our teachers would say that, they would add, before even starting to say, I authorize you, they would say, I am not qualified for this, right? But because of your desire, or because of honoring you, or because of preserving our connections, I'm going to authorize you. But usually what would come before that is this term, lestu ahlan. I am not qualified, right? I'm not from its people. So actually, what I'm giving you, don't put too much weight in it as qualifications. That's like the underlining thing said to that, right? Why? Because most of the time, what we're thinking from the qualifications are not the qualifications. Like, so for instance, one of the professors in one of the famous universities in the Islamic university, he was a professor, he was a scholar. He was talking to those graduates from that Islamic institution. They receive their diplomas, their shahada, it's a diploma, they say in Arabic. And he said, you have these diplomas, and the word shahada means to witness something, right? So it's like a witness, a testification of the fact that you have some knowledge. He said, these shahadat, these diplomas you have, are testifying that you have some knowledge. But we, meaning your teachers, we all know you don't have any knowledge. So really, it's a false testification. It's a false diploma. You're really not what you're deluded to think you are when you finish. It's very important. That doesn't mean you don't have anything. It means it's not really to be used for claims. It is an encouragement for you to travel the path of learning. In other words, this diploma says you're at the very beginning stage of actually trying to acquire knowledge. Before this, you might as well count it as you weren't doing it. You were just a common practitioner of the deen. But now that you took these steps, you're at the after you finish, you're at the beginning stages of seeking knowledge. Do y'all understand that? What I said, like, do y'all follow me in that? If you know the post-Fajr reflections, it's like it's engaging. We're back and forth. We're conversating, right? So that's why I always ask, are you following what, that's the nature of post-Fajr reflections. But on the ground, one would say he's a student of knowledge and he graduated then that makes him a student of knowledge. And here's the other thing we don't consider. How good was he in actually in his studies? Okay, he passed tests. That's obvious. But how much did he master what he learned and what did he learn? Very important, right? Do you know the average graduate from an Islamic university has not covered any book from cover to cover with a living teacher and been checked by that teacher? Do you realize that? I'm talking about the average student. I'm not talking about everybody. The average student that graduates from an Islamic university has not completed not one book from cover to cover in any field with a living teacher, and that teacher checked their knowledge in that book. You do realize that, right? Whereas our tradition, especially Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, is that you're not considered to have studied unless you did that. You see the difference? In our tradition, you're not even considered to have studied unless you read in a particular science, whatever that is that they're saying you're qualified in, a complete text, usually more than one, from cover to cover with the teacher, and that teacher checked your knowledge. Right? The big difference. I remember, to give you an example, we were studying with a graduate from one of those universities, right? And I won't go to the story because the story will like kind of be like I'm taking shots, and I don't mean to take shots. So I'm going to alter the story so the participants are hidden. So we're reading a book together in a particular Islamic science. So this is graduate person. So since you're the graduate, we let you read. So we're sitting listening to him reading and explaining. And as we're listening, we're reading a specific, famous, well-known book in the field. And as we're listening, he's altering the book. So we stop him. We like, that is not from that book. Where did you get that from? And his eyes got like real big. Like he was shocked. And he said, oh, this is a dominant opinion we received from our teachers in the university. And it was said to him, when you read a book, if you're adding your own stuff, please let it be known that you're adding. Because when you're reading, the person's assuming that you're actually reading what you learned in the text and what is related to the text. But what you have added is contradicting the text. And he said, how were y'all able to recognize that? And it was said to him, when we learn this text, we memorize the text. And we learn the commentaries on the text and the super commentaries on the text. So once you deviated from that text, it was easy to recognize, because all those texts, all those books reach us with unbroken chains back to the author. So there's no way for you to add in. It's going to be identified. And I remember that student said, we didn't learn like that. We never even read the whole book. We just took portions with notes from our professors. I said, that's not knowledge. That's not knowledge at all. That doesn't mean that you didn't benefit, but that is not reliable knowledge transfer. It cannot be used. The way we learn has to have accuracy. And that's how our religion in every science is preserved. It's preserved by what? By accurate transmission and transfer of knowledge. Not just the text, but also the understanding of the text is also a part of it. And that's the difference from learning in a university with professors and learning with scholars in their private circles. Is a vast difference, right? And that student in the university who is a wise student, and we have our own members of our community in these universities. But the wise one is the one who learns in the university and then goes and really learns at the feet of the learned scholars. When they combine both, then they see the difference. But if, and they'll see the difference from a real student of knowledge and a claimant, right? Our way of learning, especially among Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, is the way of sitting with the teacher, with the text, completing the text, the explanation of the text. And at that point, then one goes to another level of research in the same subject matter. And that continues all the way up to proficiency or scholarship. It's very important to understand that, right? But here's the catch. Because in our environments, it's accepted to underachieve and to manifest underachievement as learning. And they even make books like that, in our society. They make books, computers for dummies, mathematics for dummies, entrepreneurship, business development for dummies, right? They make things like that to dumb us down, to not allow us to achieve high ranks. And that becomes a standard. So how did they do it Islamically? Make all these little shiny pamphlets, pretty paper and nice covers, but and actually what is contained is not even a section of real sacred knowledge in a real science in a book. So if you learn a book in Aqidah, you have this little small book, and as compared to the real books of the science of Usuluddin, or right, is no comparison. And they've replaced with that as a standard for everybody, even the so-called student of knowledge, not just the common person on the street. The student of knowledge, that's what he's studying, right? So-called student of knowledge. So for us, and this has been like this for us for decades. Now, this doesn't mean that that person has no benefit. No, it doesn't mean that. But what we want to distinguish for ourselves and our community, this is a collective thing, not an individual thing, that there's a standard that even if we don't have it, we need it for our collective communities, right? So, like for instance, in our masjid, there's a rule. No one can lead in our community who didn't learn from a living teacher with the traditional methodology and have understood well their personal obligatory knowledge from A to Z. You cannot lead. Do you know, because of that, it's so hard to get teachers? Because people don't even want to do it. Because the standard is everywhere else, I don't have to do all that. Like in our community, everything is book-based teaching, right? You have to be able to take a text and unlock it, or you can't teach, right? You can maybe give a talk, but actually be a teacher or lead, no. And many times people find that difficult. Like, man, they just want to control everything. No. We want you to learn. And that's not about us. That's about preserving us, all of us, right? So that's the norm. You know, and it's a norm when we're long gone, that route of learning, which is the established route in Islam historically and globally, is the norm, right? That's something we must do, even if we do it individual by individual, even if it takes us decades, right? Even if it takes us decades. So there is a saying that is mentioned, and we need to keep it in our mind, that the wise person is the one who plants the seed for a tree that he will never live to sit under its shade. I love that. That's so, mashallah, right? The wise person is the one who plants a seed for a tree that he will never live to sit under its shade. Man, that's so strong. That's where we need to be at. And we need to be honest, right? Because this type of work really needs to start at youth. It really needs to start at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. If it's going to flourish. When we get a certain age, like our ages, I think most of the people, if I'm correct, that follow us are over 40 years old. Most of them. At least all the ones I met, they're 40 years old and over. At 40 years old, you're most likely only capable of taking care of yourself in terms of knowledge, not being a vessel to take care of everyone else, right? You at that age, your capacity in terms of lifestyle, in terms of memorization, in terms of focus is only suitable for yourself. Maybe your immediate family. But to take on the journey in our environment of a student or a seeker of the Islamic sciences is highly unlikely, if not impossible. Do y'all understand that? That's not a discouragement. It's just reality. And that's why I said it got to, because what it takes with our American lifestyle, our Western lifestyle, we don't have the time. Nor do we have the structures in place to facilitate that as a collective. Now, there's always some superstar individual. That's not the norm, that's the exception. And if you're the exception, by all means, be the exception. But the norm is not that. Like, for instance, most of us right now are on our way to work, preparing for work, thinking about work, just getting off from work. So we're even getting ready to give the next 8 to 10 hours to Mr. Charlie. We just got finished giving our night to Mr. Charlie. Or we thinking about later on, we got to go give our time to Mr. Charlie, right? With that type of lifestyle, that's just with one job. Many of us have one job, some passive income, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, just to survive in this environment. That's a reality. Now, think of that reality. How many of you would be honest and say, that's my reality, and I'm one of them? It looks different, but I'm busy all the time, right? When I finish this, I got to get busy. As soon as I finish, I got to go get engaged, right? So I'm one of them. So I know that's real, right? And I have more time than most by being the imam in terms of I'm not occupied with Mr. Charlie, but I still got things I'm occupied with in terms of lifestyle, children, family, community, events, stuff. I got so much stuff. It just, la ilaha illallah. Because I remember when I was free to be a student, man, I ain't nowhere near close to that, right? I don't even have the mental capacity for that. That's just being honest, right? So for most of us, we need to prepare our children or the children in our community. We're not it. But with this false sense of student of knowledge, this microwave Islam, these, crash courses on the weekend, we are actually deluded to think we're students of knowledge. That's a delusion, right? That's not real. I'm going to tell you why it's not real. You know what the scholars say? This is the ulama. Many of them, they say it. They say knowledge is such that you must give all of you to receive a little bit of it. Did you hear that? Knowledge is such, sacred knowledge, that you must give all of you to receive a little bit of it. That's a lot. So now what we need to do, since that's reality, we can't afford to give knowledge, all of us. We can't. Mr. Charlie needs a portion of us. Our wives and husbands need a portion of us. Our children needs a portion of us. The community needs a portion of this. The bills need a portion of us. We can't give knowledge all of ourselves. It's just not our reality. So what do we need to do? We need to realize that and then prepare some who can do that, because we collectively need that. We need to facilitate that. But for us, what can we do? We can engage in the knowledge enough to know what we must do to facilitate the spread and the growth of learning and scholarship within our communities. So sometimes we have to have the conversation of what we don't have to know how to get what we need. But if we're fooled to think that I have something I don't have, we'll never get it. Do y'all follow what I mean? So each of us have a responsibility, even if we don't reach the ideal thing that we need, but we each can contribute when we're awake to what we need to do. Do you follow what I'm saying? I don't want this, I'm not trying to discourage us. I'm trying to make us aware, because if we're not aware, it's easy for someone to fool us. That's the real problem. Then we live in a state of delusion. And we want to remove that so we can actually get what we need as a community, right? What we need as individuals is really not a lot. We do have the capacity, each and every one of us, to get what we individually need in terms of knowledge. You don't need all the Islamic sciences. You need, whenever you are personally engaging in a thing, to know what Allah made lawful and unlawful about that thing. That's all you need. At the time you're engaging in it, that's it. That's easy if you just take some effort. So I need to pray dhuhr. At the time of dhuhr, I need to know the rules of dhuhr. When asr comes in, I need to know the rules of asr. If I have some money, I need to know the rules of zakah. If I have the ability to perform hajj or umrah, I need to know that ability and how to perform it. If I'm going to get married, at that point, I need to know the rules of marriage. If I'm going to have, unfortunately, a divorce, at that point, I need to know the rules of divorce. If I'm going to buy and sell, at that point, I need to know the rules of buying and selling. Do you follow my point? But if I'm not buying and selling, if I'm not renting, if I'm not hiring, I don't need to know that. The one who does that needs to know it. So that knowledge that you need, it is plenty of time to acquire it because it's not a lot. That's an individual. But the community is involved in all that simultaneously. So we need people who know all of that in one WAP, in one location, that we can say, you know what, this is our teachers, they learned this, they learned that. Even if it's many of them, because one individual cannot encompass the whole of the Sharia, right? Or all of the Islamic sciences. That's why you have specialization. You have people that are good in this, good in that, good in that, but they're experts in their respective fields. They don't have to be an expert in everything. So there is the challenge of developing among ourselves expertise in various Islamic fields. So you have someone who's an expert in fiqh. You have someone who's expert in Aqidah. You have someone that's expert in Arabic language. You have someone that's expert in the science of usul al-fiqh. Someone is excellent in usul al-hadith, right? Or ulum al-hadith. Someone who's expert in seerah. Someone who's expert in, different aspects of fiqh. For instance, right? Someone who's expert in Quranic recitation, a tafsir. Not everyone's going to do all that. One individual ain't going to do all that, especially in our time. So there is this collective development process that we must go through, right? So it's a lot of work. It's not something that we should say that doesn't require effort on our part. There's a lot of effort, and not only effort, but expense when you really think about it. And I'll give you an example. We have in our community several people who've been overseas studying for 10 years or more from our community, our 3453 family, Masjid Muhammad. Like, we have several individuals that right now have been overseas for 10 years or more, right? Some less than that, some a little more or close to that. Not one of them are capable of doing what we're talking about. And they've been studying for all those years. Not one of them are capable of doing what we're talking about. So, and these are people who are actively studying. Do you see the level I'm talking about? They're actively studying on a regular basis, daily. They're in universities and institutions, and it's still a long way to go. So to get what we're talking about, if you want to give numbers, and listen, this is our work. You need at least 20 years of great study to reach what we collectively need. I'm not talking about individuals. And please write this. Could y'all write this for me, somebody, and everybody copy it and paste it and put it up? What is killing us as a community is individualism. What is killing us maybe we shouldn't use the word killing. What is destroying us as a community is individualism. Don't put killing, please. What is destroying us as a community is individualism. Can we put that up? What is destroying? Don't put killing, please. That was slip of the tongue. What is hurting us? Good. That's good. Maybe we can copy this. That's even softer. Right? Or this, either one. Right? Can we all post that? Either one. They're both suitable for the censorship, because killing would get you in trouble. Get us blocked. Right? Can everyone put that up? And when you put it up, make an intention that I'm not going to be like that. Right? When you put it, while you putting it, make the intention, I'm not going to be that type of person. It's not just about the individual. We have to think as a community, collectively. So even if I'm straight, we got to have like the Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz mentality. He said, Malcolm X, so long as the 22 million Black Americans are not doing great, I, as an individual, are not doing great. As an individual, as long as my people still messed up, No matter what I got, I'm still messed up. That's a mindset we need to have. What about us? I know about you. You the man. I got it. You the sister. You rolling. Well, we struggling. Until we have this mindset of what we need as a community, we're going to continue to be in this. Because every other ethnicity, ethnic group, they think as a community. Even if there's some among them that think as individuals, those selected people don't overwhelm the majority. The majority has a collective mindset in their movements, right? But African Americans have been taught to be individuals. Like, you know, and in knowledge, that's going to hurt us bad because we individually don't have the capacity nor the environment for it, right? So that means it got to be a collective effort. Do you follow what I mean? It's got to be a collective effort. Listen, and I'm going to tell you, many of us learning people who did some level of learning, I ain't talking about how much, just they did some level of learning. Because of the aspect of breadwinning, we won't admit to us where we really at. Because it suits the breadwinning of many, the ignorance of the masses. The ignorance of the masses is suitable for the breadwinning of the few. So they need that. You know, like America needs a poor class. Capitalism does not work without a poor class. It's a must. For the success of capitalism, you need a poor class. For the success of individualism in Islam, you need an ignorant class. If you don't have a bunch of unlearned people, then the individual cannot excel over everyone else. So you need an ignorant class for that type of mindset. But that's not the mindset a Muslim should have, nor is that a mindset that is beneficial for our community. Right? Because I'll give you an example. This stuff is normal for anyone who actually studied. They know it. But for breadwinning, they will let this type of environment exist. And they're right there. I'll give you an example. You can go to a masjid, and I know many of them, that the leader of the masjid, not the leader, the imam, because he's usually an employee. So there's circumstances, breadwinning circumstances. He's a graduate from, let's say, Al-Azhar, for instance, Al-Azhar al-Sharif. This noble institution in the Islamic world, which for over 1,000 years had masters in all the Islamic sciences, right? From generation to generation to generation till today, right? And you could go to that masjid and you would see that the basic knowledge, far'ain, is not being taught, nor is in any field is the beginning level of text taught in that place. This person is a graduate from Al-Azhar. So he's exposed to this vast tradition, but you go where he's employed and not even the beginning level of that tradition is being taught. You ever thought about that? And ask yourself why? Like, hey, my brother graduated from Al-Azhar. What the heck is going on here? as my sheikh used to say, because it's a matter of breadwinning. It's not about the religion. It's breadwinning. And breadwinning, you need an ignorant class. Because if everyone learns, that means you gotta step your game up. That means you actually have to continue to study, because as people are learning, the requirement of more knowledge becomes essential. But if it's just for breadwinning, then you don't need to do anything. Just keep them ignorant. And how do you keep them ignorant? Don't grant them access. Don't push them. And the world will help you with that, because the world will occupy them. So they don't even, the fact that there's nothing going on to learn and the life is pulling them, then they're not concerned. And you could go like that for decades. Decades, you can go like that. And this is a problem. We have to fix it. And that needs to be a grassroots development, right? I'll continue tomorrow, inshallah. But these are like reflections, because I think us learning and then laying out what that learning look, and tomorrow I'm going to go over some of it, inshallah. So tomorrow will be like around between 6:15 and 6:30. We'll come again, inshallah ta'ala, because it's gonna be right after Fajr, right? So set your alarms. I'm going to make sure that I try to be on time between 6:15 and 6:30, so we can continue this conversation. So these are just, things that make you go, Remember that Arsenio Hall section of his show? Things that make you go, right? And we have to change that. The devil, Shaitan, loves that we are not organized in our way of learning. We're all over the place. And that's not because we bad, because no one told us. No one granted us access. What we hope to do is wake us up and then grant us access. Because I'm not just telling you what you can't do or what we can't do or what we haven't done, but we want to actually show you how to do what we're talking about and then follow through, right? Okay. This video, I want all of you to watch it. It's 50 minutes. I know I said we're busy, right? I know. But 50 minutes. I want you to watch this video. The name of the video is Mohammed bin Salman, Prince of the Saudis. This video, it's a documentary. I want all of you to watch it. Because especially African-American Muslims, it affects everybody, but specifically African-American Muslims. And I'm going to touch on it tomorrow, right? I want you to watch this video, right? Because politics play an important role in what you're receiving, right? And the biggest, to me, this is my, all right, let me take it down. Like, right? The biggest disease that has impacted the Black Muslim community is Wahhabism, directly, right? That's our biggest problem as Black Muslims. And it is the cause of our stagnation as a group of people. I say it with no hesitation. We just don't realize it because it's been used to keep us as the ignorant masses. My honest opinion. And when you watch that video, I'm just going to give you something to pay attention to, right, to help you, right? Most African Americans who've been Muslim for generations or for 50, 60 years or more, most of us became Muslim rebelling against the unjust system here in America of white supremacy, racism, everything. We try to get away from that. We came to Islam in the various, expressions of it at that time to get away from Mr. Charlie. We went to Saudi Arabia thinking that what they were going to give us was going to help free us from what we were facing here in America. What we didn't realize that they were the greatest allies to furthering the agenda of the ones we were running from. And wise people know if you want to control the people, control their education. That's what the white man did to us. Limit their access to education. Redefine education. Redefine, reinterpret history. That's how you will control a people. They use that Wahhabi doctrine to do that to black people. Black Muslims have suffered from it, and we're still suffering today. When you watch that video, pay attention to that aspect. Pay attention. Because your doctrine you receive is authorized by those people. The doctrine you receiving that's spreading in our communities specifically, that has wreaked the most havoc in our communities, is sponsored, designed, supported, distributed, sanctioned by the same people who are hand in hand doing everything we ran from as a people. And it's a deep thing. So I'll put that video up. Watch it. Let your mind go. And you're going to notice even the term Wahhabism, they're going to mention it. So it's not like they don't know. Everyone knows but black folks. When they talk about them and they're working with them, they're allies, they're doing stuff. They're ripping it apart, and they recognize Wahhabism, right? They recognize it. And watch, they're going to say Wahhabism. So just pay attention, right? And then look at your global reality, look at your local, and see how that has transferred into your masjid. That big political landscape, how it has affected your very own masjid. It's deep. Education is painful too. My wife, she told me that one of her teachers told her, professor, watch when you learn and educate yourself, it'll make you angry. So learning is good, but make sure you control because it will make you angry. When you watch this video and you see what those corrupt people have done to our deen and how it has impacted us, and I'll highlight it for you, right? It may make you a little angry, but don't get angry. Level the playing field. Have a bit of disdain, of course, right? That's forbidding what is wrong and hating the munkar. But at the same time, realize we have a lot of work to do because of it. They did a number on us. And if we don't wake up now, it'll be another 100 years, another 100 years, and we'll be in the same condition. May Allah grant you. So that's the homework assignment. Watch that video. And tomorrow, I'll come back and I'll expand on it, inshallah, and continue what we were talking about. Barakallahu fikum wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.